I'm Ken Komoto, aka Kento, the Asian Invasion. Kento kind of rhymes with bento. A lot of things are food related, if you can't tell. But also it's kind of a conglomeration of my name, Ken and Komoto, Kento. This is kind of easier. I just wanted a one name billing, so kind of like Madonna. Yeah, I take after Madonna. Previous stage, for a little while, I went by the name of Milton Banana, but that was an inside joke, lasted about 6 to 8 months, back in, God, must be 2000, 2004, right around in there, but no, Kento has always been my comedy name pretty much for the last 27 years.
I remember, because like earlier today when you called me, it said Milton Banana. I was like,
So you had my number from what? You've had my number well over 10 years then.
yeah.
And it has not changed. So I thought that question was odd. What got me into comedy? Well, I was never the class clown. A lot of comedians were, a lot of entertainers were the class clown or the ham. I wasn't. I was the kid kind of sitting in the back or in the middle somewhere and watching the class clown and thinking to myself, this guy ain't that funny. I can do better than that. And that was me. I just kind of stay as a kid, just staying quiet. So it just kind of ruminated in my head. I can be funnier than this guy. And it all started when I was about maybe 7 or 8 years old. And I think a lot of performers do this. Is I got my first cassette tape recorder. You know, those little rectangular ones, and you know they're probably priceless now. But you know, talking into it, and one of the things I liked doing was doing my own telethons. So I would do the Kento telethon for very, very, very politically incorrect stuff for a little kid. But I would do these telethons doing all the different characters, from the host to the guests to the patients. You can use your imagination where that went. And then the first time actually, and of course, like a lot of kids, did a lot of school plays and that sort of thing. But when I was a freshman in high school, our science classes took all this big field trip somewhere and was at some camp, and one night was going to be a talent night, and the cabin that I was in, all the guys in that one were pretty much burnouts. They didn't want to do nothing, and so they said, Ken, you want to do something? I go, yeah, I'll go do some comedy. So I was, I guess, 14 years old, 15 years old, at a camp talent contest, going on stage. There was about 12 cabins, 14 cabins, and there was a bag of goodies was the grand prize. So there I went up and I did my imitation of Andy Kaufman pretty much that night, and we won. And we won. We had that bag of goodies. But yeah, but that was probably the genesis of it. What really got me to take that step to go to my first mic to audition for my first show was 1988. There was a U2 movie, Rattle and Hum. Some of you longer in the tooth might remember that. And there's a scene. The movie, half of it's in black and white, the other half's in color. Right in the middle, as they're ending the black and white phase, they're at Sun Devil Stadium, and the song Where the Streets Have No Name come on. It goes from black and white to color, and I see 100,000 people cheering. And I thought to myself, boy, to get 1% of that kind of adulation, that kind of affirmation, and that's what pretty much shoved me to go try out for my first mic. So the film was 88, my first mic was in 1989. I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, Kapiolani Hospital. Was there just my formative years till I was about 4, almost 5, and then we moved to Buffalo, New York, of all places. So, little Hawaii kid, moving all the way to Buffalo, saw my first snow, and we stayed in Buffalo from about the time I was like 4 or 5 till I was about 12, and then we spent a couple of years in Mesa, Arizona, and then did my high school years in Sacramento, a suburb of Sacramento. So kind of all over the map. And then after high school, after graduating, moved back to Honolulu and lived there most of my adult life. And then in 2012, I just moved out to the Southern Nevada area.
What brought you to Las Vegas?
Work. And some people say, well, why would you leave? Because I actually don't live in Vegas. I live outside of Vegas in the desert where there's nothing. Pahrump, Nevada, representing. It says, why would you move to Pahrump, Nevada, where the aliens are, and from Honolulu, Hawaii? Well, I think it's a lot of story. It's a lot of the same story of transplants of Hawaii people moving over to the mainland, and it was largely economic. I was doing comedy well in Hawaii, but it doesn't pay all the bills. I was also doing some other businesses there, and it just finally came down to it where it just wasn't working out financially. And I had a job opportunity in Las Vegas, took that, but I didn't want to live in Vegas, so moved out into the middle of the desert, then kind of rerouted my comedy. I put it on rest for about a year or so, but then I got the opportunity to do a one-year show at one of the casinos here, the old Clarion, which used to be the Debbie Reynolds Hotel. So it was those things that caused me, mainly economic, to move out here to Southern Nevada. What am I doing now out here in Vegas? Well, continuing with the comedy. I found out through one of my social media pages. Somebody reminded me of it, that 2017 was my year 27 of doing stand-ups. I was like, wow, I've been doing it that long. It's like, I'm now working with comedians who weren't even born when I started. So I've all of a sudden, before I knew it, I've become the old timer. But continuing the comedy here in Vegas, mostly in Vegas, and of course, just working in Vegas or surrounding areas doesn't pay all the bills. So on the side, I also buy and sell collectibles and antiques. Do that on the side. Do the eBay thing. Do the flea market thing, etc. So between the two, just kind of cruising out in the desert. And right now, it's just, after so many years, when you first start, of course, you have these dreams, you have these ambitions, and I'll tell you, show business is tough, and show business, sometimes there's a shelf life or a window of opportunity that's available to you that if you pass it by, you have to make some decisions. I'm at the point now where I'm very comfortable with what I'm doing. You get a certain degree of skill as time goes on, and now I just enjoy it so much that the money part of it doesn't really enter large into the equation anymore. It's not about, can I get a commercial? Can I get TV? Can I get a picture deal? It's more about the joy of doing it, and the joy of doing it makes you more relaxed, more comfortable, and I'm finding I'm having a lot more fun with it nowadays, and that's pretty much where I'm at right now. People can follow me pretty much through Facebook is probably the best way. It'll be under, Facebook doesn't allow my stage name, which is Kento. Kento, the Asian invasion, or sometimes Kento comedian, but my actual given name, Ken or Kenneth Komoto, K-O-M-O-T-O. You can find me on Facebook there. There is a Kento page, but under Kenneth Komoto you would friend me, like it. I'm easy.
Hey everybody, welcome to That LV Comic Life. I'm your host, David Lee, and today we have a dude he's a comic. He's a veteran comic, and he's been doing comedy for about 25 years, going on 27. I can't math, I don't know.
What happened to 26?
Yeah, it just skips over. That's the guy we're about to talk to. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Kento.
Hello.
Thanks for being on the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Hey, so, we just saw your video. Pretty cool story. I got to ask you, what's the difference? What do you think? What do you feel like is the difference between Hawaii comedy and Vegas comedy?
Well, Hawaii, you got this multicultural conglomeration of people, literally from all over the world. I mean, yes, the United States is largely that, but Hawaii more so, and you're contained largely on one island. I mean, you figure 80 to 90% of the population is on Oahu. So you have generations of people growing up together, going to schools with each other, playing as kids, all these different groups, ethnicities, beliefs, coming together in one little island. So the humor, a lot of it is based on those shared beliefs, those shared ideas, those shared cultures that have intermingled through the years, and the comedy reflects a lot of that. In this day and age of political correctness, a lot of that humor out here in the mainland could be viewed as very politically incorrect. Can sometimes get some people in trouble, but in Hawaii, it's just not taken that way. I mean, we have names that we give each other based on our ethnicities, and there's nothing derogatory about that.
Yeah.
Where it is very different here. And I think that's largely it. Hawaii comedy is very culture oriented to the place, whereas mainland stand-up comedy, of course, is pretty much still as it was during its origins, and that is more about social humor, things that are going on, a lot of observational humor, and of course those things parallel in Hawaii, but Hawaii seems to focus more on the culture itself of the state, whereas out here we don't really focus on states too much. It's a more broader type of it's a broader conversation that we have out here.
Yeah, I remember doing a small pee-pee joke about myself, and the crowd went quiet. I'm like, what? I'm not allowed to make fun of myself anymore?
They went quiet out here, really?
Yeah.
On a pee-pee joke?
On a pee-pee joke. They're like, oh, sorry. I'm like, no.
That's strange. Pee-pee jokes are universal. That's something that's you'll get a laugh on that anywhere in the world that you go to. I mean, you can go up where the Eskimos are, and they'll get it. You can go to the Kalahari Desert. They'll get it. But that's odd that you said that.
Yeah, there was. I was like, I guess because I mentioned and everybody knows the stereotype of the Asian thing and all that.
Oh, it's the Asian pee-pee joke thing.
Yeah, the Asian pee-pee joke.
You see, and then therein lies the thing I said earlier is that the whole political crisis. Why did he say Asian? Why doesn't he just say that he has a small pee-pee?
I know.
I can't take this.
What difference does it make? You guys know I'm Asian, anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You've been doing this a long time. You've been doing 27 years.
27 years now. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Now, what do you feel? What do you think has changed in comedy since when you first started?
Well, I think people who follow comedy read the articles, they hear the interviews, and it goes back again to what we're discussing. People are saying that people aren't able to laugh about themselves culturally anymore, and I don't seem to have that problem. As far as my comedy goes, for me personally, I haven't really had to change who I am, which is really interesting, and I'm kind of thankful for that. But I know a lot of other comedians have, so I guess I can't put myself there. I don't quite understand it, but I guess it goes back to this. My feeling about comedy is it is 90% psychology, and whatever the subject you want to make fun of or talk about, you have to psychologically present it in a way that people can relate to. That's number one. Relatable interests, relatable histories.
Yeah.
And there's a way of saying things, even on the most controversial subjects, there's ways of saying things so that people don't get offended. And maybe that's where the disconnect is with a lot of comedians, is maybe they're not quite hitting that mark. And maybe that's why they're running into trouble. But all you need to do is just look at your news, look at your 24-hour news cycle, and you do see right now the cultural clashes that are going on, and it's sad. And I see a lot of comedians really holding back, and that's sad too. Comedy is an arena where what you say shouldn't be suppressed. Of course, up to a reasonable degree.
Yeah.
There are things that are just horrendous that I hear sometimes, but by and large, I think that's it. I think a lot of comedians aren't hitting the mark as far as the psychology and how best able to communicate your point in a funny way without somebody reading something else into it that's not there.
How's the gigs here in Vegas?
Gigs here in Vegas, I think right now for comedy in general, same like in a lot of other places. Stand-up comedy, isn't what it was in the 90s and the 80s when the boom was happening. But anybody who's out there, really putting in the honest work, will find their gigs. As a full-time profession, it's a tough boat to row. It's very tough. Any kind of show business is. And that old saying, "Don't quit your day job," that rings true. That rings true. But I find that the more you enjoy doing what you do, the less work it is. It doesn't become work at all. And I think it's infectious on people when they see you enjoying what you do, and in turn that gets you more work. It's just one of those weird things to say. In comedy, the more you work, the more you're going to work. As far as stage time, getting stage time in Las Vegas, there's a lot of stage time available. There's a lot of shows, a lot of mics. To get stage time is not difficult. Making a living at it, that's another thing, and that's where you have to kind of bring your business sense into the equation. If you're night after night doing these little hole-in-the-wall shows for no money, that's pretty much what you're going to continue to get. Sometimes you do have to pace yourself a little bit and pick and choose where you go, so that one night you're doing something for free in some dive with 16 people, and that one of those same customers again sees you now on the marquee in Las Vegas and saying, "Why am I going to pay $30 to see that guy when I saw him 2 weeks ago at that dive for free and it was junk?" So it's a business in that sense. You really have to pick and choose. But as far as stage time, if you're a comedian starting out, to get stage time, to get some practice in, there is definitely a lot of it in Vegas.
Man, see, that's some sage wisdom from Kento, man.
Oh.
Yeah, because I met you when I first started. I was 2005.
I remember.
December 8th.
You remember the day?
December 8th, 2005.
Day after Pearl Harbor.
Oh, really?
And you met the fat Japanese guy there. See, that's Paz, and here we are in Southern Nevada in Las Vegas now together. 12 years later. There you go.
Oh, wow. Holy moly, that's crazy. Yeah, I never imagined I'd be living in Vegas or even still be doing comedy. In fact, the only reason why this show is going on right now with you and me right now is because you asked me to do a show with you.
That's right.
At this upcoming show we're doing.
Right.
And I'd taken a little bit of a break. I don't know how long I was going to do it for, but you asked me, and I was like, okay, yeah, that'd be cool. And let me interview you. I wanted to interview you. And so I went to see you at the show with Andy.
Yes.
And that actually sprung me forward back into comedy again.
So 2 shows in a row in the same week.
Yeah.
You are a wild and crazy man, David Lee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to go nuts with it.
No, I'm just glad. It's so great to see you back.
Thanks. Yeah.
You're a funny guy.
But see, that the reason why I left was a little bit was because I got into this whole bodybuilding thing, and I'm still doing it, but I started to notice that I became less funny.
You became less funny because you got buff?
Yeah.
That's strange.
Yeah, I don't know maybe it was all in my head.
Yeah, you became a muscle head, I think is what happens. The muscles just kind of went in there and kind of cramped your... No, you're always naturally funny, but maybe it just... You know what I think it is? I think maybe bodybuilding has something more to do with the ego, maybe, and it puts something, maybe, I don't know, maybe a... Welcome to Psychology Hour here at the... I don't know. I don't know if you're feeling me on that. But.
No, I do. Well, and the thing is, I also noticed that I started wearing clothes that was a little bit more revealing, not revealing, but that contours to my body, and it kind of like when you see a pretty girl on stage doing comedy for the first time, you're like, she's not gonna be funny.
No.
You know? You ever think that sometimes?
I try not to.
Yeah.
It's not a good place to go. When you're watching comedy, whether you're a comedian or just a regular audience member, you want to be there to relax, to enjoy, and to laugh, and try not to bring any preconceived notions into it, because that with anything that will interrupt your enjoyment of what you're watching.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the whole syndrome of the heckler who thinks they're helping the show. They are not. Now, when somebody heckles and a comedian counters, it can be very funny.
Yeah.
Well, that's because the comedian's a pro. He can handle it. But it doesn't help the show because the comedian has an act. He has something to tell you. And relax, enjoy, have fun, have a cocktail, laugh amongst your friends. That's what it's for. You know, throw that workaday thing out of your head. You know, there's enough problems. Sit there and laugh. It's fun.
Yeah. You hear that? Hecklers?
Well, I mean, they heard it, unless they could be deaf hecklers. So if a deaf heckler is watching, they can hit that subtitle thing, and so yeah. Do not mess with my stew. Yeah, I don't know if that's sign or not. Do not mess with my stew.
Speaking of hecklers, what was the hardest heckler? Like, have you dealt with a few?
My mom.
Oh, that was quick.
In my 27 years, my mom has come out to see me one time, and it was a good show. It was a full house. I open, and within 15 seconds, I have the crowd going, and I hear in the back, my mom's from Japan, "Speak English!" which got a laugh, but you know. But I knew, oh, that's my mom. All right.
Wait, was this during the time you're in the first part of your act when you're
Yes.
speaking Japanese?
Yes. Speak English! Yeah.
You're speaking Japanese, and a Japanese lady tells you to speak English.
Yeah, and that was my mom.
Did you acknowledge that?
No. I just kept going. Luckily, like I said, it was a good show. It was a good crowd. I could just keep going. But I heard it, and it's like, oh, are you kidding me? But yeah, I've not really had, I haven't had too much trouble with hecklers. And I think that goes back to what we were saying about the psychology of it and how I deliver my material in such a way that it's a little difficult for a heckler to get in edgewise, I think, during my act for whatever reason. At least that's the take I get. I mean, every comic gets a heckler every now and then, but mine seem to be few and far between, and none of them have been difficult. It's mostly drunks. If somebody's getting obnoxious and drunk, then it's management's job to just kind of remove them, because that's really interrupting with everybody's good time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
What was the hardest show you've ever done?
Hardest
or worst?
One of the most difficult shows that I did was also one of my most rewarding personally. Are you familiar with the Red Hat Society?
No.
These are these ladies that are over 50 years old. They wear red hats and purple outfits. They're all over the country, all over the world, I think now.
Yeah.
And I was doing a private gig for them, so I think there was about 300 of these ladies. So you're talking postmenopausal, wearing red and purple, kind of like Barney the dinosaur with a red hat, if you want to put it in perspective. And as I'm doing my show, they're there having a good time amongst themselves. I was hired, private event. I was the only entertainment. There was no band, nothing. There was this 30-foot long stage, and that was about 5 feet up off the ground, and and there I am. And it was hard because they're talking amongst themselves, and that's what happens with a lot of private parties, is people are enjoying each other's company already. Anything that requires any kind of focus, such as comedy, can be viewed as an intrusion. So immediately I'm able to garner their attention, but it took every trick that I've learned in 20 plus years, the psychology, everything that I use, my best material, spontaneity, crowd working. It took every skill that I ever learned to keep this group of ladies engaged for 30 minutes. And I got through it. The show was good. And it was hard because you're talking about 30 older ladies having a great time amongst themselves, and suddenly here comes this guy telling some jokes. It could have gone very sour very quickly.
Yeah.
Luckily it didn't, and I was so happy because afterwards it was like, okay, that experience does pay off in the end. Knowing your material does pay off in the end. Doing things over and over again does pay off in the end. You know yourself, and And that was probably one of the more difficult shows, but also one of the most satisfying for me. Now, when you talk about worst shows, they fall into the same line, especially early on in my career. Worst shows tend to be the private party, especially a company Christmas party. Because again, everybody is there from the office enjoying each other's company, and all of a sudden, here's the funny guy coming out, and a lot of times it doesn't work. You know, for it to work in a situation like that, the people there have to know that there will be a comedy show or there will be this kind of entertainment. They're usually used to music in a band where it's just playing in the background, and when a song ends, they're kind of programmed to applaud.
Yeah.
You know, a comedian's applaud is the laughter, and we live or die by each line that we say. So if we get 3 lines in a row that just isn't working, we are digging a hole, and it's not pleasant. So different kind of mindset into doing shows like that. So that, I guess for me, that's what it is. That's why I'm always kind of hesitant when I get the calls like, hey, would you like to do our Christmas party? Love to do it, but you know, do your people know that there's going to be comedy coming? Did they vote for comedy? If they voted for comedy, then rest assured you're gonna have a great time. You're gonna have a great time.
Yeah. So, all right. Going from that, I want to ask you about bombing.
A lot of that going on in London right now. It's terrible. It's terrible.
I can't believe I laughed at that.
Because you are not a good person, David.
Apparently, I'm not. I'm laughing at bombing.
David is the best, absolute best.
Bombing on stage.
Bombing on, yes, okay, right.
And it happens.
It happens. It happens.
What was yours?
Again, earlier in the career, I mean, much less and less as time goes by. And that's where you learn, actually. You know, why? You know, if you're doing the same jokes, the same routines, why is it working to this degree on one night and this degree on the next? I think there was some comedy documentary done years ago with Billy Crystal. This is when Billy Crystal was at the top of his game. And you're talking about a superstar comic, and they were showing him 2 nights in a row in different places. Same joke, same delivery. Boom, one night, big laughs. Next night, silence. Again, all goes into the psychology of the room. A lot of times when audiences come into a show, a lot depends on the night too sometimes. You know, if it's a 7 o'clock Friday show, a lot of times people are rushing from work and getting home, changing, and they're flustered, they're in a hurry, maybe they got irritated in traffic, they finally make it to the show, but they're not in that relaxed mood. They're still on that fight or flight mode. You know, they haven't had the chance to have a half an hour to sit down and have a cocktail the way they do, say, on a Saturday night. So, you know, sometimes the time and night can play a little difference. But if a comedian's worth his salt, he will crack through whatever barriers and make sure that they have a great time and that they do have laughs. You know, I'm not using that as any kind of crutch for anybody. A professional comedian has to deliver the goods no matter what. But are there variables? Absolutely, there are variables.
Yeah.
And bombing, you know, here's what I see a lot of times when I see comedians bomb, especially newer ones and sometimes some veterans. You know, a joke doesn't work. Next one doesn't work. Now suddenly they're talking faster to try to recover. Suddenly they're getting louder. And then now they're going to the audience and sometimes insulting the audience. Well, guess what? That show is done. When a joke doesn't work, just have to go to the next one.
Yeah.
You know, you're there to entertain. You're not there to chastise anybody. Be a professional. Take a breath. Take a slow. Do a setup. Deliver the punch. Doesn't get a laugh? Pause a couple of seconds. Hopefully, psychologically, you'll be able to tell them through the silence. That's when you're supposed to laugh. And it works. And it works a lot of times. You know? Sometimes you just have to take your time. I mean, especially when you're bombing. And I think a big mistake when comics are bombing is, again, they get faster and louder, and that's not the way to go. The way I always looked at it is, if you're trying to crash into somebody's worldview, whether it's at a club or more so like we were talking about at a private party, there's going to be resistance.
Yeah.
So stand-up comedy is a weird kind of one-way dialogue with an audience. You know, it's the comic talking, but you're creating a theater of the mind in your audience, and they're thinking in your world. So it's not about entering their world, but letting the audience come into your world, into your view, just gradually allowing them in. Going on stage with the enthusiasm and the energy of, guys, I have something to tell you. You know, that should be your presence and attitude on the stage, so that they're, okay, this guy's got something to say.
Yeah.
And anytime anybody, when they do start laughing, think of it as a kind of an interruption.
Yeah.
If you do that, if you have this, I got something else to tell you, and they're laughing, and you're thinking to yourself, no, you're interrupting what I have to say next. When you can get that rhythm and momentum going, I think that's when you'll find yourself as a comedian, you'll find yourself there, where you're doing it right and you're doing it professionally.
Yeah. But there's this one time, you probably heard about this, back in 2006, I was booked to perform at the Big Island.
All of Hawaii heard about this story, yes.
Oh!
But of course you may want to share for those who don't know.
Oh! What do you mean, oh?
Okay, all of the Hawaii community, comedy community of Hawaii, heard this story. If not from you, from someone else.
Well, okay, I want to know what your version of the story was.
Well, I don't know. I can't tell you with the details, but
Yeah.
but it was very early on for you.
Yeah.
And I think looking back, you realize now, yeah, I shouldn't have booked myself for a private party, not as the headliner, because again, this goes back to the corporate show where everybody's kind of into each other, having their own good time, and then here's Mr. Comedian Man, Funny Man, invading their space.
Yeah.
And I think, where are you, like 6 months into it at the time?
6 months in.
Yeah,
I was 6 months
They flew you to the Big Island, put you up in a hotel, paid you good money, because you're one heck of a salesman, David Lee.
It wasn't me, though. I didn't book myself.
Who booked that?
Oh, man, I was working with Junior Kekueva Jr. You know
Junior booked that?
He booked it. He couldn't do it, so he was like, hey, David, I got a gig for you. I was like,
You know, Junior, for those who don't, Junior is fearless. I mean, that guy is fearless.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, yeah, you could be a lipstick clown on a pogo stick. He'll book you. Yeah, do it. Yeah, jump on the pogo stick. Jump on the pogo stick.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if I can do it, man. You're like, come on, what have I been training you for? I'm like, I'm
Training?
6 months in. Yeah, because I was doing the road show with him, performing at parties or whatever.
Right.
And I started getting a little bit stronger for the 5 minutes that I had.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, you can do this. I'm like,
But they wanted you to do what, 40 minutes?
45 minutes.
When you had 5.
When I had 5, I had a good 5-minute video that they saw and they loved.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I can just stretch that out. I can just, talk in between the jokes.
Not.
5 minutes into the, I walked on stage. I had it was like a play on words with Kinko's. It said kinky.
Uh-huh.
And first mistake right there was, and I remember you telling me back in 2006 that screams open micer.
It screams open micer, and you don't want your shirt to be funnier than your jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I go on stage with my kinky shirt on, and I do a bunch of jokes for a bunch of people who don't work anymore. And 5 minutes later, the guy, the booker is in the back. He's going like, I'm like, no, but there's 40 more minutes.
And I'm going to do them.
So
Because you're paying me. And I'm in this nice hotel.
yes.
They almost didn't give you a ride to the airport.
They
right?
almost didn't. I had to call him like, hey, is anyone going to give me a ride? And it was just a quiet ride the whole time through. Oh man, that was.
But lesson learned. Yeah.
Lesson learned.
We all go through these kind of trials.
Yeah.
Maybe not that extreme, but yeah, we do go through all these trials.
Yeah. So, never doing that again. Well, they'll never hire me for the life of my career. I was told by Bo Irvine. Bo Irvine is a Hawaii comic veteran as well. But yeah, he told me that, they'll never hire you. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's cool, whatever. Yeah. But lesson learned.
Yeah. And that's what it is. In comedy, you're always learning. No matter how many years you're doing it, it's a continuous learning process. You know, shows might seem the same night after night, but something new is always coming up, a nuance, something, and you learn from it, and you get better, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a 30, a pretty decent, strong 30, and I know you have a really good hour.
What I like to do is I hate pauses. So even though I can do an hour my favorite is like that 40 to 45 minute show, which is typical of doing a headline at, say, a comedy club or a comedy concert. That's kind of a typical time constraint to put yourself in, and that's what I enjoy doing most. Yeah.
So how, like, I always wonder, like, at what point should a comedian ditch their old jokes and come up with something brand new?
Only time to ditch your old jokes is if you become famous.
Yes.
You know, I see a lot of people entering comedy, the new ones, the open micers. You know, every week they're doing a different 5 minutes, and it's like, why?
Yeah.
You don't even know if the last 5 minute worked. You know, there's nobody in that. There's no one from the Tonight Show. There's no Hollywood executive sitting in that club watching you. It is a different audience each time. I know comedians who have led great lives, wonderful livings, 30-year plus careers, did well for themselves with the same act all those years. They just never got famous. Now, you suddenly get a Comedy Central or HBO special and then a national tour to follow, then guess what? Yeah, after they have repeated that cable show 67 times and you did that national tour, yes, that's right, now it's time to write new jokes because it's burned. You can't use it. It's not like a rock star where you can play the same song and everybody's expecting it. Yeah. With comedy, it isn't like that at all. It's once the funny is gone, they know it. Well, what else you got for me?
Yeah.
And that's the pressure of a comic, because a comedian can toil and sweat and cry for 10 years, 15 years to develop that 45 minutes to an hour act. Then suddenly, if they are lucky enough to get the fame, to get the cable deal, the show, Comedy Central, what have you, now suddenly that 10 or 15 years is burned.
Yeah.
Well, now what else you got for the next year? And I think you see a lot of that happen with a lot of top names right now, without mentioning names. Amy Schumer, who, when she first came out, you know, had her set that she had developed for years that people liked. I mean, it's what got her famous, and then it gets burned, and then she comes back talking about things people don't want to hear about, and a lot of criticism comes from it, and it's not all unfounded. My take on it is, if you do get so lucky where you burn your material, well, that means you should have had a payout good enough where hire a writer.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing wrong with that, you know. It takes a long time to develop that act that gets you the notoriety to get noticed. It takes a long time. And now suddenly when it's gone, to rewrite that, very difficult. I mean, I don't know how many people have you seen the movie Comedian with Jerry Seinfeld?
Yeah.
Okay, there it was. Here he was, he had this illustrious 25-year career doing comedy, top-rated sitcom. Then it was all over. Then he decided, okay, I'm going to go back to what I love, stand-up comedy. But I've got to start from the ground up again, because all his material has been burned. Everybody knew it.
Yeah.
And it showed his struggles. You know, he would pop up as a guest at comedy clubs trying out material. And there was that one scene in that movie that I love.
Which one?
He was at a comedy club, I think it was in New York, and he's doing his lines, and all of a sudden you hear this lady in the audience with an English accent who had no idea who he was. And it's like, is this your first night, dear? Now the whole rest of the audience is dying. You know, they all know who we know who Jerry Seinfeld is, but this old British lady did not, which goes to show you. Here's Jerry Seinfeld, top of the world, first-class comic, and yet here he is trying to start over again, and you're sounding like an open micer. And that's the reality of comedy. It is very difficult to build that show back up.
Yeah, man, nothing like back in the day when there was the tight 10.
Yeah.
Is all you needed.
That's the comfort zone. That tight 10, that tight 20, that's the comfort zone. That's easy.
Yeah.
That's easy.
And that's all you needed at that time, right? Just 10 minutes?
Well, depending on where you well, when you're first starting out, 10, 50 minutes if you're opening, etc. If you're featuring, you want to have 20 to 30, and then headlining, you want 45 plus.
Yeah.
That's the way it is, but it takes a long time to build that.
Man, is there such thing as a tribute comic?
Tribute. Good question. I have not seen. Let's see. I could be. Oh, I don't know. I can be. I can be the Asian Chumley. He's not a comic.
No. Yeah, and then that would be. Then it'd be like, then you could do that comics jokes because you have tribute bands.
But again, we're saying it just doesn't work for comedy.
Yeah.
You know the punchline. Now in music, you know the punchline, but music hits something else in your soul, in your psyche. That's your mood. Whereas laughter is more of a spontaneous type of thing to an element of surprise.
Yeah.
And once the surprise is gone, it's
True.
done.
True. So I got a question. What's next for you?
What next for me? Good question. I just want to continue doing what I do. I'm just enjoying myself thoroughly, having fun. One thing about being a comedian and working on the road and working circuits is that your other colleagues, your other comedians that you meet, you always seem to go around and meet again. Sometimes you won't see each other for 10 or 15 years, but when you do see each other again, you pick up the conversation just like when you left off. It's a very interesting fraternity to belong to, and I'm proud of that. And that's what I want to just keep on going. I'm past 50 now, so my window of opportunity, for the sitcom or the 3-picture deal, it's pretty much gone. I mean, you never know. You never know, right? You always remain positive, but my positivity comes from my ability to do what I'm doing, to move forward with what I've learned, and even after 27 years, get better at what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's a craft, and I enjoy my craft. It's like crocheting or knitting. Your blanket gets bigger and bigger and bigger and fancier and nicer, and hopefully the fabric and tapestry of your humor also expands in the same way. Was that a little too highbrow? I can bring it down a little bit. Be less facile in what I'm saying. I just wanted to use that word, facile.
Now, in the earlier video that we saw, you told us how they can follow you and stuff like that. Just to remind them again.
I can be. You can find me on Facebook. Facebook won't allow my stage name, which is Kento. Sometimes you'll see me billed as Kento the Asian Invasion, but it's there under my name, Kenneth Komoto, Komoto, Kenneth Komoto. Facebook, you can friend me, follow me. I'm easy. I also have a page, just Kento. If you type Facebook Kento Comedian, that page should pop up too. So either way.
Awesome. And okay, but do you have any upcoming shows aside from the one tonight? But
the one tonight, and then there's I think there's one State Line coming up right now. Summer is generally a little slower time.
Yeah.
We're taping this in the summer. a little slower time, but yeah, more and more shows coming up though. But yeah, follow me on Facebook and you'll see all my posts there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kento.
No, thanks you, man.
Thank you so much.
That was great fun.
My goodness. So guys,
We
this
sing
is
Hawaiian
Kento.
songs now. Aloha. I don't know any Hawaiian songs.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
You know chants?
Chants. What's the last
Any
name?
Hawaiian chants?
Chanson.
Chants. Hawaiian chants.
Oh, Hawaiian chants.
Yeah.
I know an Indian chant.
Oh, go.
Oh yeah, because spending time in Mesa, Arizona, I had Indian friends, and they taught me. This is a chant of good fortune, good luck, and good wealth. Let's see if it works for us tonight. I 24. Next call. I 24. Bingo.
That's Kento, ladies and gentlemen. I'm David Lee. This was That LV Comic Life, and thank you for watching. Aloha.